LA Metro Magazine podcast is here to bring you the entertaining, informative, and inspiring stories of the people who live, work, and play in the Greater Lewiston Auburn, Maine area. I'm your host, Colby Michaud. Today, we sit down with Katie Lisnik, the Executive Director of Greater Androscoggin Humane Society. We start with her background and how that led to her passion for animal welfare. Katie explains what the Humane Society is here for, what you can do to help, and we also touch on the importance of the human-animal connection. This is LA Metro Magazine Podcast, episode 001. Hi, Katie.
Hi there.
Welcome to LA Metro Magazine Podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're happy to have you, and we're looking forward to sharing your story and everything that Greater Androscoggin Humane Society does with our audience. I think a lot of people will find that fascinating.
I hope so. I think there are an awful lot of animal lovers in our community, and hopefully this resonates with them.
We both are animal lovers, just to get that on record. You are the Executive Director for Greater Androscoggin Humane Society. But before we go into that, because that's a relatively new position for you, can you take us back in time and talk about where you're from and your love and passion for animals, and then how that led to this job?
Sure. So it's been an interesting road, but I've always known that I wanted to work with animals. When I was young, I'm originally from southern Maine, started out in Old Orchard Beach, and then we moved to Waterboro, which is a small town in central York County, when I was 6. And, we had a very rural home, all kinds of wildlife, always had animals. We had German shepherds, we had cats, I had mice and hamsters and gerbils and rabbits, and just always was surrounded by animals and loved it. Not knowing a lot when you're young, when you want to work with animals, you think, oh, I'm going to be a veterinarian. And so that was really what my goals were, or my goal was when I was little, was to work with animals in that manner. We had a couple of local veterinary clinics that we would bring the animals to, and I always thought, isn't that fascinating? Isn't that exciting? That's exactly what I want to do to help dogs and cats and other animals. So it progressed from there. I started working at the shelter down in southern Maine, Animal Welfare Society, which is in Kennebunk, when I was in high school. I started out as a volunteer, would go and visit whenever I could, and then actually got a job as an animal care kennel technician for a short time before leaving for college. So that was very rewarding. It gave me an experience of what shelter life is like, and, some of the challenging issues that come up for animals too, apart from just medical care, understanding what overpopulation meant and, why it's so important to spay and neuter dogs and cats, and, seeing some things that were uncomfortable to see, cruelty situations, neglect situations, and how that all really comes together to help improve the lives of animals. So from there, I went to the University of Vermont as an undergrad and studied animal science, still with an eye towards becoming a veterinarian. And the thing that I'll always look back and be thankful for is that the school required that all animal science students take a class in animal welfare in general. So it was a class that talked about all kinds of things. It talked about shelters. It talked about farm animals. It talked about animals in research, all kinds of different aspects of how humans and animals interact with each other, and in positive and in negative ways. And from that, I was able to realize, there's a lot of other jobs that I could do and ways that I could help beyond being a veterinarian. And my passions really much more closely aligned with that work, whether it was working on policy or working on advocacy or kind of programmatic elements, as opposed to the nuts and bolts of giving rabies vaccines and doing spay-neuter surgeries and all of the other important things that veterinarians do. So from there, it kind of changed my world. I realized that I had a passion and a goal and a mission to really focus on animal welfare in that realm. So I went afterwards, after I got my graduate degree, or my undergrad, went on to the Master's in Public Policy program down at Tufts University Veterinary School. So still went to the vet school, but it was a 1.5 year long program focused on policy work. So after that, I came out and did, a variety of roles. I've worked as an animal control officer. I did a couple short stints in retail at a PetSmart and a Petco. I worked at a veterinary clinic doing cat boarding and veterinary assisting. And then actually went back to the same shelter that I started at, Animal Welfare Society, after I got out of school. And I was their first program coordinator, working on volunteer program, foster program, humane education, all that sort of other stuff that's not actually hands-on animal care, but it's dealing with people and how we interact with animals. And that was really exciting. I was able to, I think, grow a lot in my skill set and very hands-on skills, and really immersed in all the things that shelters can do and things that shelters can be apart from the day-to-day care of animals. And so that was really rewarding. And from there, I got a job as the state director for Maine for the Humane Society of the United States, which is a national nonprofit that works on all sorts of animal welfare issues. It's not just companion animals. They work on farm animal and wildlife and all sorts of things. So I was able to, work at the state level, got very familiar with the entire state of Maine, all the players, all the shelters, the farmers, Inland Fish and Wildlife Department, all the state agencies, governor's office, and worked a lot on legislation, improving legislation for animals across the state. Incredibly rewarding, incredibly big job, as you can imagine, having an entire state with all animal welfare issues. It was definitely a lot. I did that for like 6 years, and then transitioned to a different role in the same organization. So I worked nationally on cat issues and other companion animal policy issues for another 6 years or so. And then the executive director here, Stephen Dosty, who had been here for years and years, and I had known him for a long time, working with him at the state level, let me know that he was retiring. And I was like, that sounds really interesting. I've loved the shelter, loved this organization for a long time, and really wanted to be able to get back to a local organization where I could put a lot of the programs and policies and things that I'd seen other shelters do around the country to work myself and actually start seeing things and being involved, from the ground level up. So that, kind of in a circuitous route slightly, always with the focus on animals, brought me here to where I am today.
That's really interesting, because it sounds like even before working here, you were pretty familiar with this organization. I was, yes. Yeah, Greater Androscoggin. So was that an advantage coming in? It was, for sure. Each shelter has its own almost flair, I'd say, or, its own culture, its own focus. And some shelters are very, very, very focused on, the care of the animals. Some shelters are very focused on cat issues. Some shelters are very focused on volunteerism. And, I think what I loved about Greater Androscoggin is it's very focused on community engagement and recognizing that pets are out in the community. We need people in order to help animals. There's no way around that. You can't do anything without people. So we need to embrace people in our community and get out there and talk with everyone and find out what's going to be helpful. So that really spoke to me, that mission. And I think that we've been able to continue it and will continue to grow and expand that over the coming years. Could you talk a little bit about the people here? I mean, you mentioned sense of community. I don't think that's a coincidence that culture here is in this greater community of Lewiston Auburn. But could you talk a little bit about maybe your role, specifically what you do kind of like on a daily basis, but also, how big your staff is and what different departments you have and what they do as well?
Sure. So I would say I like to call us, sometimes the little engine that could, or a small but mighty. We're not a large shelter. We have 24 staff members, which, in the overall scheme of things seems like a lot, but we are all maxed out and always wish we could have more people on board. But we don't really have departments per se, but we have a very small medical team. We have mostly animal care staff, a large number of them that also do adoption counseling and intakes, owner surrenders, all of the day-to-day operational items of the shelter. We have a volunteer coordinator who's fantastic, front desk team, and then our core leadership and management team with a development director and a bookkeeper and myself and our operations manager and animal care lead. So, we're a small team, but we work really well together. Everyone has a very full plate, but does a great job. And then to supplement that, we have about 150 volunteers, I would say, in terms of ones who are in here pretty regularly. Obviously, with COVID, we've had to reimagine that, and we have had to put some people on pause and just stay connected to them through social media. And then when it's safe for them to come back, they're excited too. But typically about 150 volunteers coming through. Some are here 3 times a week. Some come in once a month. Some just do events with us. It really depends on the volunteer. And then about another 100 foster families. So our team is actually quite large when you're considering all of the people who are contributing to the organization. Day to day, my job is quite variable. Some days I'm working on payroll and bookkeeping and financial aspects of running an organization of this size and keeping us going, which is always fun to think about and work on. And then other days it's, staff training, or some days I get to actually talk with adopters about some of the cats that we're sending out. I have a little bit of a specialty in cat behavior, consulting with folks on cat behavior and challenging behavioral issues. So I like to always have a cat in my office that needs a little bit of extra time and attention and maybe isn't great in a kennel and maybe isn't very happy with being here. I like those cats and I like to talk with people about them. So
I think I've met that cat.
I think you've met, yes. I have a rolling... it's like the rolling door. There's always one here that needs that office time. And, they just need some space and time to relax. The shelter is a stressful environment, especially for cats. They're hearing dogs barking. There's weird smells. There's new people. Cats like routine, and this can be really challenging for them. I'm always astounded that so many cats do so well here. Typically you would imagine that most cats would be totally freaked out and unhappy, but so many of them actually do quite well. So those are fun days when I get to work on things like that and really engage with our adopters. But every day, there's something good. There can be really hard days, really sad days, but there's always something positive to focus on. And that's what I really love about the work. No matter how bad it gets, there's always those bright spots that we can focus on. And that's what I really try to bring to our team is really focusing on those and understanding, hey, the work is tough, but look at the amazing good that we're all doing collectively.
Yeah, that's so true. I never thought about it like that, as far as, from a cat's perspective, about how stressful it must be in here. You're right. That's amazing that they can get through that. And
it is.
And you guys do go through, you do adopt a lot of cats or give, what's a term? How do you describe that as far as when you giving a cat a new home?
Yeah, rehoming, adopting. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, cats are our number one species that we deal with by far. Mm-hmm. I'd say we have about, we come up on close to 2,000 cats a year. Dogs are usually below 1,000, so more than double. And then we have, a couple hundred small animals and all that, but cats are number one by far. The one animal that we're having to move through as quickly as possible and to find as many homes as possible for.
Where do those cats come from?
All kinds of different ways. We do get a lot. We have 11 towns or municipalities in Androscoggin and Franklin and Oxford County. that we contract with. So that means we provide stray services. We take in stray dogs, stray cats. We'll take cruelty cases, neglect cases, something the animal control officer is working on. We'll work with them. And then we take owner-surrendered animals too. So we get cats in a wide variety of ways. I'd say about half of them come in as strays, and then another half come in as owner surrenders who the owner can't keep them for any number of reasons. They're moving, there's a change in lifestyle, there's a new baby, there's allergies, the cat's just not fitting in. I mean, the reasons are endless, and for most cases perfectly valid. And we try to help them find a better fit, a home that cat can thrive in.
And how do you actually do that? How do you help these animals find good homes? Because I know it's not like everyone that walks through the door not necessarily is fit to take an animal home with them. So do you have a screening process or interviews, or how does that work?
Yeah, we do. We have an online application that we ask people to start with, and that just gives us the basic info. And then from there, we really try to be matchmakers. Most people are able to, we want everyone to be able to benefit from the love that a companion animal gives and offers. Some folks may have limited financial means, or, live in a really busy household that not every pet is going to be, keen on living there. So we really try to matchmake and get to know the animals while they're with us. If we do have one coming in as an owner surrender, we try to get as much information about that animal's behavior as possible so that we can then turn around and say, okay, sounds like that household was a little too crazy. This kitty's going to do better in a home that's quiet, maybe with an older couple, or someone who doesn't have kids under 6. So we can kind of matchmake in that way, and then it becomes a conversation. When people come in, when they're interested, we want to try to find that pet that's going to be the right fit for their family. And it doesn't always work, and we are very happy to have animals come back. If it wasn't a good fit, then that's fine. And there's no penalization. There's no, nothing saying, it didn't work out, bad, shame on you. You can't adopt from us. It was, no, we failed in matchmaking. Let's learn from that and figure out a better animal for that household.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit more just about animals in general. Because you've been interested and in love with animals from a young age, as have I. I grew up with dogs. There were dogs in the house before there were children. My sister and I were, born into a dog house, which is a dog home. We weren't born in a dog house. And so that's just been natural. So for me to not have pets is strange. And I have had a period of time where I haven't, and I felt a hole there.
Yeah.
Why do you think that for a lot of people, having a companion animal is so important?
Well, I think they provide us with unconditional love. It feels good to come home and have a fuzzy creature that's so super excited to see you. Your spouse or, your children or your partner may not be as excited to see you for whatever reason. But your dog or your cat, for the most part, sometimes cats will kind of ignore you, but that they love you. They're there. They'll seek you out for attention. Being able to snuggle on the couch with that warm softness, or go out for a walk. They just do so much for us, for folks who battle with depression or need kind of that motivator to get out in the community. Dogs can be wonderful for that. You've got to get out and walk them. They need their exercise. They need to be able to go to the bathroom. So you kind of have to do that. You've got to get out. You've got to meet people. For cats, sometimes it's nice to just be able to, if you like to sit down and read a book and have a little, companion with you, there's nothing like it. Humans can be complicated, and there's all sorts of different things going on with relationships, but the love of a dog or a cat or a hamster or a rat or whatever, it's there. It's always there. And I think the only downfall to that is we never have them long enough. But there's always another that will capture your heart when the time is right. So yeah, I mean, I would never want to deny anyone the love of a pet or a companion animal.
And the memories last forever. So
they do.
That's wonderful. I was also just going to add that the love you get from an animal, is genuine. It's just, it's pure.
Yep.
And I think that might be the biggest reason that we fall in love with animals is because it's this give and take. And you talk about being unconditional, right? And that's so true. And sometimes cats, it's a little bit different when you come home.
Yep.
But my cats, actually, one of them is almost sometimes think she's a dog because she's always at the door. She's meowing. She's very vocal. You can tell she has an energy that's excited, and that's fun and that's enjoyable, obviously.
It is, yeah.
With dogs, it's amazing because you could run an errand for 15 minutes and come back and they're like,
right,
you were gone for so long, I love you so much. Like that's amazing. And that's a great reason to have, that alone is a great reason to have an animal. And especially in the world we live in with so much going on, so much stress.
Yep.
A lot of people suffer from anxiety and depression, and animals can be so compassionate and empathetic.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that I think, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this too, but communication with animals, the animals teach us a lot about ourselves because they don't understand language, or they know, words, certain words, and but there's almost like those are sounds that they can associate with a meaning. They don't think about it the same way humans do, but we find ways to communicate with animals that we don't communicate necessarily with people.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you find those nonverbal ways of communication, you can also, if you're paying attention, you can learn how to do that with people, and that can improve your life in many ways.
Absolutely.
So when you were in school, did you study anything about that specifically, about communication with animals?
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting science around animal cognition and, what they think, how they think, what do they really recognize compared to what we do. And it really varies across the species. Certain great apes or dolphins or parrots have very high cognitive function, pigs for that matter. And dogs and cats are quite high up there. But I think it's, they communicate so much. If we take a step back and we really start to watch them, they may not be verbally communicating. They're not going to, stand up and tell you the day's story when you get home. But once you've lived with them, you've really observed them. They're telling you so much just by their body language, maybe the sounds that they do make, how they're interacting with you. You can tell. And you brought up, compassion, and I think that I don't know if listeners have experienced this. I know I certainly have, or if you have, if you come home and you've had a bad day, they just know it and they'll act differently. They do. They feel that energy. They feel that coming off you. And my cats, typically aren't super cuddly. One of them is, but the other three aren't. And that'll be the day when the other three want to be much more near me. They want to be close. They want to be patted, or they're coming over and they're giving me, I interpret it as, emotional support. They're really trying to provide that. They know that something's wrong. So that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. And that's intuition. You're not saying anything to them other than letting them feel how you feel. And they just know deep down. It's an understanding. It's a common understanding, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and they talk about the human-animal bond, and you form it. I mean, it's there with companion animals. I mean, it can be there with other animals as well, but for an animal that shares your home, and it's amazing how quickly that bond can form. You sometimes at the shelter, and we'll see it. People will come in, and they'll sort of have an idea of what cat they might want to meet or what dog is of interest to them based on what we convey on the website. And they'll come in and you'll see them. They'll make eye contact with one and they'll be like, oh, can I go see this one? yep, go see. And we'll talk with them about who this animal is. And that bond was almost instant. They're like, oh, this is the one. They picked me. We feel it. There's a connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much that is communicated that can't be said with words.
Yeah.
So going back and talking about your role as the executive director, 2 years in roughly, right? What are some of the challenges you've faced so far, and how have you dealt with those?
Certainly, COVID has been, I'd say, the biggest. And, it's never just one person that's responsible. I mean, obviously, yes, I'm responsible for a lot here, but we're really a team. Everyone has a role to play, and, being able to engage everyone and hear what their concerns are, hear what their ideas are, we're smarter together and we can accomplish so much more. So I always try to engage as many minds and brain power as possible on any issue that we're experiencing. That being said, I think just the management of a small business, which being a nonprofit, we are still a small business, and dealing with all the HR issues and just personnel and making sure that we have the manpower to change the lives of so many animals every day that we do. I think that's probably been overall just kind of a constant thread of needing to stay on top of it, always needing to make sure that things are going well, organizational culture, keeping us as positive as possible. That's just, always there in the background as something to be focusing on and keeping track of. But certainly the pandemic has been a major challenge on all fronts. Fundraising, really number one. We had to cancel all of our events. We've had to stop our transport program of bringing young dogs and puppies from southern shelters who are struggling. And, donations come in many different ways, and it's always amazing, and we're so thankful. But, we've been trying to not appear desperate, and we're not. But communicating the dire need and the challenges that we're facing, while still maintaining the fact that, hey, we're helping animals every day. Please help us continue to do that. We're here for the long haul, and we want to be able to help people as they face challenges related to the pandemic, but we also need help too to make that happen. And certainly, whatever we're facing in the coming months with evictions and job loss and just economic impacts from the pandemic, I think that's a little bit of the wild card. So right now we're just trying to shore up as much as we can, be very mindful, and making sure that we've got some reserves to be able to weather any storms that may come. So I'd say, number one, that has been the major challenge since I've started.
And since the pandemic, you've come up with some creative ideas, right? Are you doing like a drive-up clinic? Are you doing that on a regular basis now?
Yes, yeah. So we'll have 4 this summer. Normally we go to Kennedy Park and Moulton Park several times throughout the summer, and we provide free vaccines and microchips and basic wellness services, free pet food, things like that. When this pandemic hit, I reached out to both police departments for the cities, and they said, we're really not too keen on having that many people gather in the parks, which we totally heard. They do get busy. We've got people waiting in line for a long period of time, and we didn't want to put anyone at risk. So we thought, okay, how can we do this in a safe way that still serves the need, and probably an increasing need as people are less able to financially cover basic wellness care for their pets. So we decided to hold it right at the shelter, and we're doing it in a drive-through format. So people stay right in their cars. There is definitely a wait time. We've had some people waiting for a couple hours, so they get here early, and we moved in, I think, 120 cars in the past one we did just last month, or earlier this month, actually. And still providing the same services, still, providing them at no cost for people in need. It's just a different way of doing it. takes a little bit more time and energy, but they've gone off well, and we've got another 2 scheduled for the summer.
Earlier, you're talking about how important community outreach is. Obviously, that's changed in the last few months. What lessons have you learned so far from COVID-19? And do you think that'll affect the future of this organization?
I think we very quickly realized that a lot can be done virtually, but it doesn't always mean that it should be done virtually. Some things work well, others don't. Some things there's just no replacing that human interaction or that, animal interaction. So adoptions have really been going very well virtually for the most part. We do an online application, we call the person, we talk with them on the phone pretty extensively to uncover what they're looking for, what their lifestyle's like. We talk with them about the animals we have here, and then we do a pretty brief meet and greet appointment. So they come in, they meet the animal, they say, yes, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and then they go home. We have not seen an increase in returns. We haven't seen an increase in issues from adopters who are doing it this way. So we've learned that the bond is there, even if they meet them for 5 minutes versus meeting them for 2 hours. So that's been very heartening, and I think we probably will continue that to some degree. Certainly while the pandemic is still going on, we will, but afterwards, we might be able to do some stuff virtually still and still feel confident that those homes are going to be just as invested as our old process. But things like events, things like getting out into the community and just meeting random people who didn't even know we were here, because there are still people in the wider community, and we have 11 towns that we serve, and certainly there are folks out there who don't know that we're here. And meeting those folks is really priceless. So I think we still need to find safe ways to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting that you haven't seen much difference, the numbers as far as adoptions doing it virtually. That probably speaks to the practice that you've put in place with the interviews, and you talked about matchmaking. That I'm sure that's a huge part of it.
It is, you can do, those conversations can happen via phone, they can happen via Zoom or some other, FaceTime, just as well as they can happen in person. You're still making that connection, you're still learning and engaging folks. So that's really worked well. And, the heartening thing is that adoptions have been going really well. People are still interested in bringing new animals home. We haven't seen really a drop-off at all. And we've seen an increase in people who are interested in fostering for us. So that's been really wonderful.
The production of this podcast would not be possible without the support of our community partners. One of those just happens to be our sister publication, Uncle Andy's Digest. Uncle Andy's Digest has been woven into the fabric of the Greater Lewiston Auburn community over the last 25 years by providing its readers with humorous one-liners, short stories, and most importantly, positivity. Fun fact, in August of 1996, the first edition of the Digest was printed. That means you can help celebrate 25 years of Uncle Andy's with this month's special 25th anniversary edition. One thing that surprises people to learn is that Uncle Andy's is distributed to 19 cities and towns in the central Maine area. That means whether you're in Spatis, Auburn, Turner, or Oxford Hills, you can pick up a copy, or 2 if you're a good neighbor. So if you're a local business that wants more exposure and top-of-mind awareness, make sure you check out Uncle Andy's Digest. Why not get more exposure for your business while spreading smiles at the same time? Those that do simply say, it works. So we're going to switch gears a little bit, I think, and take a pause from talking about animals, or maybe not, we'll see. Lewiston Auburn, as a community, Greater Lewiston Auburn is a pretty large area, and it's very diverse, and there's a lot to do here. I'm curious, what does Katie Lisnik like to do when she's not at work, being the executive director? And how do you enjoy your time here?
Right. Well, I do tend to be a bit of a workaholic. I'll freely admit that. I'm usually on, checking our social media or answering emails far more frequently than I should be. And working, trying to find that work-life balance is always something that we should be striving for, and I do. My husband and I are pretty much homebodies. The pandemic hasn't impacted us as much as maybe other folks. We liked to be home. I love to read. I like to, paint and draw. So, artistic endeavors, music. I like to sing. We did used to do karaoke quite a bit, and now we don't do that. So hopefully we'll be able to get back to that. And just going out, with the art walks was something I think we're missing those. So there's certainly some things that the pandemic has curtailed. But overall, I think that, number one thing that I love to do is just be out in nature. So going for hikes, just getting out in the community and walking, going down and seeing the river, seeing how the seasons change, and enjoying the wildlife is a big thing for me. And that's, fortunately, the pandemic has not changed that or impacted that. And just getting out into nature is my best form of stress relief. Just being able to relax and kind of get away from it, get away from work and think about something totally different. I find that to be the easiest when I'm outside in the forest or under a tree.
Yeah, it's something about being surrounded by a lot of green is very therapeutic and very important.
It is. Yeah, it is.
And you mentioned earlier you have 4 cats, is that right?
We have 4 cats, yes.
Do you have cats only? Do you have dogs as well?
Just cats right now.
Just cats?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are they indoor cats, outdoor cats?
They're indoor cats. 2 of them came with us from Vermont. We were in Vermont prior to moving back here for this job. So both of them are Vermonters, transplants. And the other 2 we actually fostered here for the shelter and ended up keeping them. The bond was formed and we could not let them go.
Sometimes that happens.
It happens, we call it foster failure, but it's not really. You found your match.
Right, the goal was still met, right?
It was, absolutely.
You just didn't think that was going to be the outcome.
Exactly.
That's funny. I'm sure that there's a wide variety of opinions from many people concerning animals and pets and animal welfare. Is there a misconception that could you pin down a singular misconception that you deal with on a semi-regular basis?
Yeah. One I've been thinking about a lot recently, we're trying to become more active in trap, neuter, return for unowned cats, and communicating with folks about stray cats. And this has really, really kind of risen to prominence nationally as the pandemic has happened, when shelters try to limit the number of animals coming in. Like if we had to cut our staff, say, and we couldn't deal with the number of animals we normally do, one of the first things we would say is, okay, if it's a healthy stray cat that just showed up on your stoop yesterday, wait a little while. Don't bring them in immediately. Let's hold on. Because I think the biggest misconception is a cat wanders up onto your porch and you think, oh my goodness, this cat needs something, something horrible happened. This cat, needs me. More than likely, that cat is owned and is just doing a walkabout and has found your porch and decided this looks like a cool place to sleep. Oh, and thank you for putting out food. Now I'm super excited, and I'm going to come back here every single day to have more food. So a lot of what we consider to be stray cats are actually just opportunistic eaters that make the rounds, and essentially you're a little, you're the lunch bistro putting out, the yummy stuff that they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to come back tomorrow and have some more of this. So they're not always in need of rescue. Now, that being said, some are. if they're looking sick, if they're looking injured, if they, are hanging around and they really don't seem to be going anywhere else, then yeah, we want to help them. That's what we're here for. But that initial reaction of, you just showed up, I must rescue you and spirit you away to the shelter, actually can do more harm than good, because more than likely someone's looking for that cat, or they're expecting, Fluffy to come home later that day. There was some research done, and it showed that cats are 13 times more likely to be reunited with their owners if they don't come to the shelter. If they just stay in the community, they find their way home. Whether you put up like found cat flyers or you go knock on doors, they're much more likely to be reunited than if they come here, because people don't always think to check with us. Or we only are required to hold a stray cat for 48 hours by state law. So if the cat's fat and happy and doing well and we can get him up on the adoption floor, we want to do that as quickly as possible, because otherwise if a cat stays here for long, they'll get stressed out, and often they'll get an upper respiratory infection, which is like a cold. So we want to get cats out as quickly as possible. So by the time someone starts looking for their cat, or they've been missing 3 days, 4 days, it's possible they're already on the adoption floor or even adopted out already. So I think that's, the biggest misconception we see is just around stray cats. I like to say, think lost, not stray. Could you be trying to find an owner who's looking for this kitty before they come to us?
Yeah. So what would you say your advice is if you did find a cat on your porch? What should you do?
Yeah, I would give it a few days. Certainly if the kitty's looking thin, you could put some food out. You don't always have to put food out. If the cat looks in good shape, I wouldn't even put food. See if the cat hangs around. One thing you can do is cut just a thin strip of paper and write on it. I found this cat, or this cat wandered onto my property. I'm concerned. If you're the owner, please call me, and put your phone number on it, and then just put it around the cat's neck with a little bit of tape. And it's paper, so it's going to fall off if they dig at it, or if it gets stuck, it's not going to be a risk of them getting caught on something. It'll just tear right off. And then I've heard from numerous people that it works. The owner will call and say, oh yeah, that's, Blackie, and she just likes to wander around, and probably, will come visit you again tomorrow. So you can do some things. You can put up found posters. You can post cats on Maine Lost Cat Recovery on Facebook. There's different things you can try first. Give it a few days. If the cat's still coming around, he's not going away, or like I said, if there's an illness or injury, then absolutely call, right away. But if the cat looks healthy and happy, just give it a little bit of time and see what really is going on.
That's funny. Like the paper thing, I never would have thought of that. That's almost like a messenger pigeon type of thing.
It is, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
About themselves.
Yeah, right.
I'm curious, has there been anything that surprised you about either this community or this organization?
That's an interesting question. I don't think anything, in terms of the shelter has been surprising. I think just the amount of support and the wide range of support. Every time I go out, I run into someone who loves the shelter, who has, done something in some way. Like, oh, I share your social media posts, or, oh, I'm a donor, or I adopted from you, 10 years ago. So it's not necessarily a surprising thing, but just is a heartwarming and wonderful thing. And it really kind of, reinforces the knowledge that people do love animals, and this community, exemplifies that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, as we get close to wrapping up here today, if someone's been listening and they want to help, what should they do? And I know you talked a little bit about donations earlier. Is there anything specific you're really in need of currently, or that you're always looking for?
Well, certainly we're always looking for financial donations. It's very easy to donate. You can mail us a check. You can stop by. You can go on our website, which is savingpetsinmaine.org, and make a secure donation via credit card. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to help. That's not surprising. But I think what people get a little bit caught up on is, you don't have to come in and donate $1,000. $5 helps, $1 helps. It all contributes. It all comes together to help us do the things that we need to do every day. And some of it's not glamorous. It's keeping the lights on. It's, making sure our HVAC system is working. But some of it's really wonderful. It's food for animals. It's, a vaccine. It's all of these different things. It's staff time for the person who cleaned the kennels today. So certainly financial donations are incredible and give us that latitude to do what we need to do. But pet food, supplies, bedding, used towels, blankets, bleach. We go through so much bleach and laundry detergent, you wouldn't believe it. So it can be anything, dish detergent, just cleaning supplies. All of that stuff is incredibly useful. During the pandemic, we were very thankful for donations of toilet paper. We still have a facility and we need to maintain, and we're still, people are here. So anything that you have that you might want to pass on, is wonderful, and we'll take it all and we make good use of it.
And though no one can actually see what we see right now, we are sort of surrounded by bags of, is it cat food or is it dog food?
There's cat food, there's dog food, and cat litter.
Cat litter, yes.
Yeah.
Is this going out, or was this brought in?
This is prepared for our pet food pantry that we do every single week, every Tuesday morning, for people who are struggling financially to feed their animals. We give out, and there is an actual program that they enroll in. We give away dog food, cat litter, canned food, treats, every single week to folks in need and to pets in need. And
how can someone learn more about that, or more information?
Yeah, so go right to the website, savingpetsinmaine.org, and we have a page about Pet Food Pantry. They can read all about it and then just call us. And actually, it's our volunteer coordinator who coordinates the pantry with some stellar volunteers. And it's just a matter of talking with her and getting enrolled.
Yep, and we'll actually link that as well on our own page too.
Wonderful, thank you.
I guess my last question for you is, what gets you out of bed every morning? What makes you excited to start your day?
Well, I think, it sounds, a little cliche, but it really is helping animals. It just has always been there for me. I don't like, for people or for animals, people or things who are treated badly or poorly or cruelly. Injustice bothers me, whether it's for people of color or, different social classes or animals of any stripe. I've been a vegetarian I became a vegetarian when I was 11 and then went vegan about 10 years ago, I think now. So it's just always been an ethic with me that if I can avoid causing suffering, I want to. So, the work here, we get to do that every single day. So no matter if the day, if I'm going to be working on something that's not particularly fulfilling, like payroll processes or, putting together an SOP about our benefits package, it still has the overall goal of helping this organization thrive, which then has the goal of helping animals.
Right.
So I can always try to bring it back to that, but I do try to always have at least some hands-on something with an animal, if I can. And it could even be just my own cats, recognizing, hey, the two that we rescued, the two that we fostered, they were little feral kittens, got brought in from being born under a shed, and one of them was super hissy. We couldn't even touch her. We had to wrap her up in a towel to do anything with her. She'd try to bite. And now they are the most loving cats you've ever seen. She just wants to be snuggled all the time. And that, we improved the lives of those two. And we can do more of the same. There's always good that we can do for animals and for others. That's what gets me up every day.
That's awesome. I think that something I've been thinking about more recently is just in general, the more love and care you give to somebody or something else, the more you receive. And it's so exemplified with animals.
Yeah. Yep, it really is.
So with that, Katie, thank you. This was really cool. And this organization is very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And let's do it again sometime.
Okay, that sounds wonderful to me. I really appreciate it and have really enjoyed chatting with you.
My thanks to Katie for her time and for sharing her story and knowledge with us. We have many more exciting guests ahead in upcoming episodes, so make sure you subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to your other shows. That way you're not missing out on future episodes when they're released. A big shout out and thank you to Uncle Andy's Digest for sponsoring this episode. You can find out more about them at uncleandys.com. We also want to thank you for listening. You, our audience, are the most important piece of this program. We know that these recordings are just slices of a bigger ongoing conversation that we want you to be a part of. Positive vibes and well wishes from all of us at LA Metro Magazine. Until next time, I'm your host, Colby Michaud. Make sure you're being entertained, staying informed, and getting inspired.